You're still searching for that breakthrough that always feels just out of reach. What is your true life path, and how do you finally find it? Welcome to Say It Anyway, the podcast where we help you unlock the breakthrough you've been waiting for so your true life path can finally come to life. Each week, we share powerful practical tools you can use right now to start transforming your life. You'll hear raw, honest conversations with people from all walks of life, people who found their way forward and are here to share mindsets, strategies, and wisdom that help them get there. I'm James Ferrigno. I've helped people reconnect with their power for years. I'll guide you beyond surface level solutions into a deeper way of seeing the world, one rooted in connection, courage, and open-hearted dedication. This is your space to think differently, live boldly, and finally do the thing you were meant to do. Let's get started. Welcome to Say It Anyway, and here is part 2 of our interview with Mike Strong. Enjoy. My feminine was completely healthy, but it was the masculine that was lacking some of the energy. And I know even at Fearless, you helped me with some of that. I remember the paying attention to the bottoms of your feet. I remember you telling me that one time, and it really stuck. And now, really to this day, if I'm in a crisis, that's the thing I think of to do first. So
Awesome.
that's still with me,
That's
so,
great.
yeah. So that grounding is super important. Super important.
Yeah. And also, um, learning to speak from like your stomach, especially if you need to set a boundary or like you realize that you're nervous or insecure or kind of in a weird place,
Mm,
speaking from your stomach because that's where your self-esteem is,
mm,
and some of this stuff I'm not the biggest woo-woo person, and some of this stuff I was definitely like when I first started with Brian, I was like, I don't know about this guy. He's pretty out there. And like
mm,
other coaches have taught me to like you gotta make sure that people aren't selling you snake oil, right? So
yeah.
I was very skeptical at first. And the first time, especially the first time, he showed model work video, and model work is basically where it always starts putting, we bring in models, women basically, we just call them models, but we bring in the models, so we're not just saying, hey, we're bringing in the girls, right?
Yeah.
Who just like literally stand in front of you and just shut up and hold eye contact, because that
Wow.
is like one of the places that when you're just shutting up and holding eye contact with someone, that's where your shit can come up because it can be like very emotionally intense, right? And that's the whole idea, is to trigger like what the shit down deep so that we can start to work through it. Um, but and then looking at as things evolve for each individual client, in each individual session, like looking at the connection and how you're being, your embodiment, and how the girl's responding to you and why.
Mm,
Um, and so the first time, I'd done some model work before, but it was analytical stuff. It was like, here's a sheet of paper and here's some funny pickup lines. And
oh,
you're not
yeah.
lying to the girl, but we used to call them openers, right?
Yeah.
And then so then after you say this, then turn your body to the side so you don't look too interested and you look more confident, and like try and do this and that and that. And they're kind of analyzing how the surface level conversation and even I'd say surface level body language goes, because body language is important, but a lot of times the way it's taught is like, okay, stand like this and you'll look confident. Does that look confident? Like, yeah, I'm confident, right? It looks weird, right? And I'll never forget,
No.
um, we had one client come in, and this was actually the same weekend that I saw a model work video for the first time, where when he came in, I actually pulled him aside at a break, and I was like, "Yo, dude, I don't think these coaches, Brian and Dave, it wasn't Fearless yet back then, but I don't think these coaches can help you. I think, like, with all respect, and I say this out of love, but I think you need a psychological evaluation, because when he walked into the room, he was like this stiff, like robot. Like, what's that? I wish I could think of that movie. Um, that tech movie where they're like the he's a video game creator. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, but we'll have to try and put it in the notes or something
Oh,
because it's actually a good example of like being very, very in your head. Um, but
Ready Player One or something? I don't know.
that might be it. That might be it.
Yeah.
He's this weird, creepy guy who's very analytical, and this
Mm,
guy actually made him look not that bad. He was
yeah.
moving and he what had happened, it wasn't so much like mental health conditions, but what had happened was he had studied so much pickup artist stuff that he was, like, trying to be perfect and trying
Oh,
to walk and talk and move perfectly. So it was like it was, like, cringed with him being in the room even. Like, the energy was that bad, from all this pickup artist stuff. Um,
it's
and,
backwards. It's
like,
completely backwards.
yeah, yeah, it was very like, "Oh, I need to sit and move and set a talk like this because this is what the pickup artist told me to do." Um, you
You're
know,
trying to
and
replicate the inside on the outside. It
yeah,
doesn't work that way. Yeah.
yeah, and so then that same weekend, he shows he records the model work and then he shows us the video and he's like, "What do you see here?" And I started pointing out all these things. Well, oh yeah, I should have stood like this. I should have, I should have
Oh,
said this. Not to the level of this guy who came in who was super cringy awkward, but it was still like I was analyzing it from my head, like, "Oh, I'm kind of like this and this." And he's like,
mhm.
"No, I don't wanna hear what you think. What do you feel looking at that guy on the screen? Where's he at in his body?" I'm like, "What?
Yeah.
What the hell are you talking about?" So, I was very skeptical, but now it's like it's second nature because it is for women, like, it is what they respond to, whether some of them consciously realize it, but a lot of them, it's just subconscious, it's just the vibe that they're responding to, and when you get a text from a girl that's like, "Yeah, you're a nice guy, but I just don't see anything," or "I just didn't feel a spark," it's some version of that you're not connected to your emotions and most likely your sexuality, um, that she's just not feeling anything.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, those videos were really powerful, huh? Being if you can look at them. I remember once we had done the model work and he was showing the videos and Brian pointed out, "Look, you can see that his heart energy is like halfway towards her. Oh, it's 60% now. It's moving." And I looked and I saw it. And I remember, "Oh God." And like from that second on, I can always see it now. And
Yeah,
I remember watching those videos and I'd go, and you could just watch it go all the way and then connect. And then you're like, okay, they're connected now. And I remember in the class, no one else had seen it. Like Brian could see it, but
yeah.
none of the other students could see it. And I was like, oh. So, yeah, I did some connecting with some guys too, where I started to see like we did an exercise where we correct connected with the people and I connected with the person so deeply I was seeing all kinds of images from their childhood and stuff that just sounds crazy. But I
Yeah.
did and I was repeating it back to him and he was like, "Oh my God, how do you know this stuff? What's going on?" Because I think because of the exercise, we are sitting there for so long in this bubble, it just got really deep. And after that, I would go on dates and just connect with women that way. It's a bit strong, like it would
Yeah, you have
throw
to manage it a little bit in real
yeah,
life
at
with someone who's
first.
not ready for it, right? So,
Yeah. They
because
would
it is very intense.
yeah, they would get but I will say they were attracted for sure. They're always
Yeah,
attractive, but they would ask me questions like this what's going on? I've never had this happen before. Where'd
yeah,
you come from? Stuff like that.
yeah,
Yeah, so it could be really powerful. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, you start to, like, be much more insightful, there is a surface level to this too where you learn to, like this work, and Brian certainly taught me,
Mm,
uh to ask a lot of questions. So there's
mhm,
always like that piece of it, like really being curious about people and like what is that what did that person really feel as they were saying that? What are they feeling right now? So some of
mhm,
it is questions, but even as I say that, I'm like, yeah, is it really? Because especially in a human connection, like a date or just like getting to know someone, you know, um, in a real life environment. Um,
Mhm.
you know, eh, like the more you do this work and get embodied yourself and really get curious about people, um, and feel that curiosity, not like think it.
Mhm.
Sometimes you need to think it to start, but then you gotta actually connect
Mhm.
with it, the feeling in your body. Um, you start to like realize that there's a lot more going on, and you start to become very perceptive. Like, oh, you said that, but I saw this look at the end of what you just said. You know,
Mhm.
what did that mean? Or and you can even start to like, if you really do this work for a while, you can even start to be like, did this happen to you? And they're like, how? Kind of like you said earlier, like, how
Yeah.
did you know that? There are
Yeah.
so many like little micro expressions that we have, and like little subtle ticks and ways our emotions get conveyed in our facial
Yeah.
expressions that you can't even necessarily, there are some things that you can point out, but sometimes it just comes out like a vibe. Like
Yeah.
it's just something you feel. It's again instinctual, where you can be like, "Is this what's going on?" They're like, "How the fuck did you know that?"
Yeah.
Um, and it also makes them feel, even if it's not that deep, um, even if you're not calling out something that's like soul deep, just
Yeah.
your presence and your energy is just like more magnetic, and they're more drawn to you, and you just feel things, and you almost have, you do have often a conversation underneath the words, or sometimes, like you were saying, without the words at all.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, it can be it's really an amazing skill, and, being able to do that. I remember, yeah, going I went on a couple dates where I hardly spoke. I hardly spoke at all,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's totally possible. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, very little needs to be said when you know, your vibe and her vibe are spot on. You
Mhm.
know, like there's so much going on underneath the surface, you know.
So
Um,
much, yeah.
so much, so much. I mean, like there was one time I was out in Hollywood, doing some homework for a Fearless program I was in, and it was Valentine's Day. It was Valentine's Day actually, and so I went into this piano bar. It sucks because it's gone now. The Dream Hotel is there. Um,
Mm.
but you know, it was this great piano bar. And I walk in, I instantly see this beautiful girl on my left, this beautiful black girl, like very my type. I'm like, damn, I need to talk to her. But I was still in a place where I was avoiding. There was like my growth did take a long time, because there was a lot of moments, a lot of periods in my growth, even after starting to work for the company, where I would run away from stuff that I didn't really want to face. A lot of that was
Mhm.
like, you know, what we call cold approaching, when you don't have any invite, or even maybe even sometimes warm, when I've gotten a look from a girl,
Mhm.
but I can find a way to logic my way out of success. Like, oh, she didn't really mean that. What if this? What if that? Just talk my way out of it. So I was trying to address some of that. Um, but, you know, she was clearly, like, having a very intense conversation, intense moment with a friend. So I was like, "Yeah, you know, maybe now not the best moment to go over." But I posted up by the pianos, and we kinda look back there every now and then to see if the conversation had, calmed down a bit, and I looked over and the her friend was gone, and I knew
Mhm.
from way too much painful experience of hesitating all my fucking life, that if I waited, you know, either one of a few things were gonna happen. Maybe the girl was going to the bathroom because 'cause they're about to leave, and they're about to leave. Maybe, the girl comes back and they get back into that whatever intense conversation they're having, and then again, it's hard to, like, start a connection there. Um, you know, when they're clear, like, very in a bubble.
Yeah.
Um, or, you know, what would often happen was some other guy would notice and not be hesitant like I was, and, you know, would take her out from under my feet kinda thing. Not
Yeah.
really, because 'cause I'd never went up and talked to the girl, but, you know, so I took a moment, I was like, "You gotta go now." But I took a moment to do the work. I felt my feet. I felt I also, like, looked at her from across the room and was like, "What do you really like about her? What turns you on about her?" I let myself feel that, you know? Um, sometimes that's actually getting hard, but
Mhm.
sometimes that's just, like, feeling a little bit of a buzz down that whole pelvic region of your body, like, yeah, I can feel the turn on. And I also let myself feel the fear, I didn't deny that. I was like, "Can you even, like, feel your feet, but don't deny the fear that you have. Can you just embrace it all? Embrace all this feeling that, this beautiful girl across the room is giving you." And then I was like, "Okay, you gotta go." So I just walked across the room, and I was feeling so much turn on and heart and like all this stuff, grounding too, and nervousness too. But especially I was feeling the turn on pretty good, and all I said was hello, and it was game over by the time I had finished saying hello in the best way, because the
Mm.
hello was so powerful, and I wasn't trying to say, maybe there was, like, a little part of me that was consciously trying to say a
Yeah, yeah.
powerful hello, but most of it wasn't me trying to be like, "Let me say hello in the sexiest way possible." It was just, like, what I was feeling, and she was sitting like, at this, like, high top table, and
Mhm.
the hello almost, like, knocked her off her chair. Again,
Ah.
she's like, "Who the fuck is this?"
Mhm.
And like literally within 5 or 10 minutes, we were making out, making a scene in the bar. And her friend even came back, and I was handling that decently well. Um,
Mm.
and that was and honestly, it could have I know from how our connection was, that I could have even moved faster in terms of, kissing her. But I was still, like, very nervous because this was something I was still not comfortable doing.
Yeah.
Um, and, the other part that's really important here is that, after the hello, and yes, I probably gave her a compliment, like, pretty quickly after that, told her something that I liked about her. And I didn't try and be I don't think I do my best not to not try to be creative, to not a lot of dating coaches will be like, "Oh, you gotta compliment something creative." If that comes to you naturally and that's really what you're feeling, like, "Wow, like, this is really attractive," or whatever, then that's great. But if you're looking for, like, "Oh, I can't tell her she's beautiful, I can't tell her she's sexy, I gotta compliment her personality because that's the right thing to do," then you're usually not really gonna be feeling that. So that emotion isn't gonna be as strong, as genuine.
Mhm.
And so I gave her a compliment pretty quickly. There was probably something along the lines of beautiful or sexy, because that's just what I was feeling. Um, but, after that, then I was able to, like, not have to, like, have this clever pickup artisty or amazing conversation. It wasn't that at all. It was the same boring ass questions, well, they used to be boring, that I would always
Uh-huh.
add that, "Where in LA are you from?" "What do you do?" But it wasn't boring because I wasn't being like, you know "So, what do you do? So, what part of LA are you from? Oh, cool." It was like, "So, what do you do? What part of LA are you from?" I'm flirting underneath the words. I'm saying this
Yeah.
platonic stuff, but with a lot of sexual energy. So we, I didn't have to like be like, oh, I have to be this clever conversationalist.
No.
And it was just like, it makes things so much simpler. I'm not gonna say it's always easy. It's not always easy because you do have to face these emotions that we're uncomfortable with. But when you do, it makes things so much easier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and it's these are powerful skills. Yeah, and yeah, to one point, the what I started to do is the thinking about what to say. I just forgot about all that. I just say whatever comes up. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I say.
It's the best. It's the
Who
best.
cares? And but these skills that you learn doing this really transfer to everything. And I used to go to a lot of workshops, a lot of high workshops and sexuality workshops and all kinds of different workshops. And to better myself, to transform myself, to become more confident and successful in life, in business, in happiness, in relationships, and everything. And they weren't all about dating or anything like that, or meeting people. I have, a partner. So, but I would still, what I eventually figured out is I'm spending $1,000 or $2,000 for workshops. And I realized I can just go to a mall or something and approach people, and that's it. That's the workshop. You do that, you're getting the same growth, the same stuff. I could do it alone, that I would get paying thousands of dollars. Not every time, but for the most part, I go through the same kind of learning process and growth process, and it's really great. And these skills, it's like I use them in my relationship, in romantic relationships. I use them with friends. They come up with my parents. They've been incredibly useful. I use them with students and clients. Use them. I mean, it just becomes who you are. But these skills of putting the bubble around someone and connecting to them and really listening to them and being connected to myself and being honest and vulnerable. It's like, I'm using that when I'm calling up a credit card company. I'm doing it when I'm, you know, always, doesn't matter who I'm talking to, any human being, right? So, of any age, of any denomination, in any relationship. And it's always helpful, and it always makes the interaction go better, deeper. But when romance is involved, that's where it's the toughest, and that's where the stuff comes up. And
Yeah.
that's where it's
Yeah.
real obvious, that's where it's real obvious. And that's where so the magic happens. It's where you can really grow. I really,
Yeah.
even, so go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say when you're in front of a beautiful person that you're attracted to that hasn't validated you, that tends to be where our shit comes up the most because that's more
Yeah.
like we all want we want to be as independent and as self-validating as possible, but we all want anyone that's healthy wants values connection, values human connection, and
Mhm.
um the sexual connection is where things are going to be the most vulnerable. So that's where all of our shit comes up very quickly.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, the only place where more comes up is if you have a sexual connection with someone over years and you know them and you
Yeah.
have a partner, then you get even more of it. Yeah. So, yeah. And that can be, that's the real high end stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need a lot of skills there. After a few years. Um, yeah, it's really powerful. So you learned all this at Fearless. You have all this growth. So when did anything else happen in the Fearless stage before you went off on your own, or was
Well,
that the
I
next
mean, I
step?
think I kind of started realizing that I potentially wanted to be a coach when my first weekend or week with the Art of Charm because I was like, again, this stuff is so much more powerful than years of therapy. Um,
Hmm.
But, so I started working eventually for Fearless, doing social media, was definitely not ready to be a coach, but I would help out with workshops and, um, I kind of already had that bug a little bit, to
Hmm.
be a coach. So as I started showing up more and running away less from my shit, um, you know, I started becoming more of an assistant coach, and basically that led into, as I evolved and the company evolved, becoming a coach for a full-fledged coach.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, just a lot of like facing my shit with women and with people in general, with like my insecurities. Like I mean, it did used to be a big I think it was more of a subconscious hurdle than something I consciously thought about in terms of my disability and how I look. I joke. This is part of me owning it, right? I joke that I have like a T-Rex arms,
Hmm.
to kind of help guys be like, oh, he can joke about this. Okay, I can
Hmm.
own some of my shit too. Um,
Hmm.
but I mean, certainly, like. limping up to a girl and kind of being awkward on my feet sometimes definitely like adds to.
Excuse me. Yeah,
Yeah, no
excuse me.
worries. Um, you know, uh being awkward on my feet sometimes and especially if I'm if it's a nightlife situation, being bumped around and kind of pinballed around sometimes even, um,
Ah,
it can be challenging, right? So it's a lot of, like, catching those things, like, sometimes it's very obvious, right, when you get triggered by something, but sometimes there's just, like, little things in your subconscious that you don't even realize are going on that are affecting how your vibe is and how real you're being with someone, how
mhm,
connected you are versus, like, in your head somewhere, um, so it's, like, a lot of catching those things and realizing, like, one of the biggest gifts that Brian Dave gave me is kind of a combo of like masculine energy and like modeling that for me, number one, like just their presence and their
yeah,
beingness, and their vibe, but also like guiding me through again, getting lower in my body, feeling what being more masculine feels like, actually feels like, not just what it looks like. That's an important piece of it, but because sometimes seeing it can also like help you start to feel into it, but
mhm,
actually feeling it in your body. And also right tied in with that is um, like pointing out how I was being a victim and how I was playing small with people and being just very supplicative, like again, nice disabled guy, don't wanna rock any boats, um, versus like really like owning what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking and you know, my presence in my body. Um,
mhm,
and even like again, sometimes it doesn't always have to go this deep, but just your, like, little micro expressions again and, like, your little things that go on emotionally, they can have a big impact on people because, if
mm,
I'm, like I mean, first, a general example, like, if you're on a date with a girl and you're sitting next to her and you're, like, really, really nervous and you're like, "I don't know if I should" you're like, "I don't know, I know we haven't touched at all this whole hour, so I know I need to grab her hand or do something if this is gonna go anywhere or anything," but you're like, "I don't know if I should, and I'm really worried about it, I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about taking her hand." That can feel kinda weird because again, you're not I know this can sound really woo-woo, and again, remember, I was really skeptical of this stuff at the start, but, like,
yeah,
you do this with a female friend even, and she'll probably if she unless she's completely in her head, which some girls are, some women are,
mhm,
but if it's a girl that's reasonably present and in her body, she'll be able to feel like if you're really, really nervous and not even just from like sweaty palms and that kind of thing, but if you're really, really nervous and or you're really thinking about something else or thinking about doing things the right way and you hold her hand versus like or take your hand versus like being like, "You know what? uh, maybe I am a little nervous, but I'm taking her hand because I'm attracted to her, because I enjoy her and I wanna, I wanna be more intimate with her." Um, and you really enjoy holding her hand, that's gonna feel very different. It's gonna feel very different.
mhm,
So, and like little things like if you say something if you compliment a girl, and this is something that had to be pointed out to me too at different levels, and you're like one thing I would do, one obvious thing that I would do at certain points when I started to kind of get some of this work is be like, I would drop into my sexuality by turn on very well. What I call your sexual magnetism, very well. And I would deliver these great hey, what's up? Or God damn, you're beautiful. I'm Mike. And then but then that tension from being in that space then I
mhm,
would run away, so it'd be like, "Hey, I'm Mike. What's up? So, what do you do? Are you from here?" Like, and then all of a sudden,
uh,
I'd be back up here and back in my head and all this nervous energy, and you don't even realize you're doing it. So that had to be
yeah,
pointed out to me. But
mhm,
then at even more subtle levels, if you say something and then you like are really worried about it, and you're really thinking, did this land? What's gonna happen? Um, what's this person gonna think? I mean, they may not consciously realize that, but something will feel off.
Mhm.
And it affects the quality of your connection with people. And we have to also be kind to ourselves, right? We all have insecurities. We all have our bad, our weak moments, or not our best moments, right? But you do want to be conscious of, like, especially if you think you're kind of starting to get this work and you're still getting some weird reactions. That's where you may want to invest in a coach who can actually watch you in real life and be like, this is what's happening. Um, because
Mhm.
there'll be, like, little micro moments you'll have where you just pull back and you don't even mentally, where you, like, go somewhere else, or you're, like, worried, and then that makes her worry, or her think, what's going on?" Or just feel off, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden the whole connection is funky. So, it was doing a lot of deeper model work, um, where we do this connection stuff, sometimes, again, just in silence for sometimes 10, 20 minutes in silence, and seeing
Mhm.
what comes up, and having a coach there to be like, here's how you're being. And then also asking the woman how she's feeling in your presence. Just holding eye contact. Does she feel uncomfortable? Does she feel creeped out? Does she feel like you're angry? Does she feel connected at all? But then, even, like, escalating those kind of connections and doing things like taking her hand, and how does that feel? you know, you say the compliment, or you say something that's on your mind. And then what happens inside you while you're saying it and the moment after you say it in the silence? Do you freak out emotionally and run away?
Mhm.
Are you doing something to
Mhm.
then kill that moment that you just created with someone?
Yeah, it seems to be a very common thing too. Yeah, and people, they can't necessarily read your thoughts, but your thoughts are connected to your emotions, and most women
Yeah.
can read your emotions.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
can. And
Yeah.
like you were saying, it sounds woo-woo, but it's just the reality. They
Yeah.
can tell. They
Yeah.
can feel it. Not like you're saying, not every woman,
No.
at every time, but most.
Most, yeah.
Yeah,
Most.
most can. And so how you're feeling is really important. You better, if you're feeling anything weird, call it out.
Yeah, that's
Because
exactly it.
yeah.
I have weird moments, and I'll be, you know, the work part of the work is getting grounded and conscious enough that you can even catch those things. So sometimes, definitely, the pre-fearless Mike was such a nervous, like, I don't know about nervous wreck anymore, but still a nervous ball of energy. Um,
Mhm.
that, like, I would never be able to catch this stuff. And so some of it is just like, a lot of the work is exposure therapy, like exposure to more and more tension, more and more getting out of your comfort zone in obvious ways, and again, subtle ways in connection. Um,
Mhm.
but then when you catch it, then, calming yourself down enough through doing this work for a while that you can catch these things, and then being able to be like, oh, that I got a little weird there. I'm sorry. Or, like, even like, oh, I'm sorry. I got totally in my head and I didn't hear a word you just said. Instead
Yeah.
of being like, what were we talking, like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, don't do
Yeah,
that.
definitely agree,
Mhm.
that kinda thing. So slowing yourself down enough, and then calling things out for sure. And even though, like, here's, like, so calling things out is a form of vulnerability, right? When you're doing it the right way. Are
Mhm.
you but again, it's like not what you're saying, it's like what's going on underneath the hood of what you're saying. So,
Mhm.
if you try to, be vulnerable to get a reaction, it may work with some women in some situations, but that's where it's gonna be weird or, like, needy. Um if you're like,
Yeah.
well, if you're, like, being vulnerable, like, if I'm telling a story, like, there's a big difference between, like, if I'm telling my own story, I'm like, "Yeah, I didn't have a dating life, like, women never liked me, and, it was really terrible, um, like, kind of hoping that she likes me because of that."
Mhm.
Um, versus being like, I can even still be sad or heavy and be like, "Yeah, things were really tough, didn't have much of a dating life. I even had moments where I wasn't sure how I wanted to stick around forever."
Yeah.
But, and that really hurt, but, I worked through it. Big difference in energy,
Oh, yeah.
especially if I'm not trying to get there's not some level of me trying to get a reaction out of her. or out of
Oh,
whoever
yeah.
you're talking to. Um, so you want to be aware of that too. And sometimes though, it's just about breaking some eggs. Um, like I was out on a date with a girl, a while back who, like, she was she was one of those ones who felt very out of my league, so I was, like,
Mhm,
very happy just to, that she actually was
mhm,
attracted, and, she was a bit of a party girl, let's just put it that way, and she was a bit of a party girl, and, so she was like, "Hey, can my friend come?" And I didn't have the balls back then to be like, "Yeah,
mm,
that's not really a date." Um, and then we get to this bar and I was planning to pay for her. I wasn't planning to pay for her friend though. I'm not dating both of you. Um, and they both just ordered drinks and they were very confident, edgy women. So, they both ordered drinks and then they just look at me. And so I caved and I paid. And then I realized like how just this was not how I wanted things to go, and
mm,
I wasn't really being myself. I was trying to make them like me. Um, and it just seemed like the connection wasn't there at all. And so I called it out. I was like, I said, yeah, it just seems like you like I'm not even sure that you want to be here right now. But I didn't own it like I just delivered it, right? I was like, you know, I was trying to make things better. I was like, "Oh, if I'm
uh,
vulnerable here, things will get better." Things actually
mm,
got more awkward. But that doesn't mean what I did there was wrong. You
no.
gotta break eggs to make an omelet. Steph Curry, the greatest three-point shooter now in NBA history, didn't get there by being afraid of missing shots and screwing up. You gotta be willing to screw up, and the saying is so true about like that the master fails what is it, like 10,000 more times or 10 more time 10x or 100x even what the beginner or the non-beginner ever even tries. So,
Mm,
you do have to be willing to fuck up and be like, "Okay, why was that weird? What was going on inside me there that made that weird?" And sometimes it's just the girl's not a good fit either. But you gotta
yeah,
be willing to have these things not go the way you want to be your strongest self.
absolutely. Everything in life is that way, right? Not
Yep.
attached to outcome. Yeah, yeah. And circling back to one part of what you were saying is like you can't just fake being vulnerable as a tactic
Yeah.
because be, vulnerability and authenticity are connected because you have to learn who you are first and be connected to yourself and really be authentic means the first stage of being authentic is learning who you are yourself, right? And then the vulnerability is then sharing that with someone else. So if you're not connected yourself, there's nothing to share. Then your vulnerability isn't vulnerability because it's not authentic, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just thinking I know guys try to do things like that as a tactic, and that's not going much of anywhere. So the strong life coaching, why don't you talk about that for a couple of minutes? So
Yeah.
how's that going? What's happening there? What kind of stuff are you up to?
Yeah, so when Fearless kind of stopped operating sort of at the end of 2022, um, I was like, "Well, what am I gonna do?" And I'm like, "I don't really want to do anything else." This is
Mhm,
this is kind of what I want to do, and um, so I thought about going for and working for another coach, but actually, our marketing director at the time, Cairo, he encouraged me. He's like, "Don't go work for another coach. If you want to do this, it's like just start your own business. You're gonna be way happier. You know, if you wanna ever start your own business, don't just wait another 5 years to do that, because that's what I told him. I'm like, "I see myself doing that more in, like, 5 years." And,
oh,
he's like, "Don't wait, just do it now." You're I was trying to avoid tension there,
mhm,
avoid stepping into things there, and he pointed that out to me, and I was like, "Damn it, you're right." So I started just, working on building my own little operation. It's very small right now, but that's also I don't want it to be too big either. Like, I want to really dive deep with people, and, that's why I limit my immersions, basically my in-person workshop, to 4
Mhm.
guys so I can and we do 3.5 days, in person. They're very, very long, intense days because it's like the in-person part of this is like the deep surgery, right? Let's get in there and really, really, go deep. And then there has to be recovery and still, your life eh, some guys do get huge breakthroughs throughout the weekend. You definitely can, but you're probably gonna need to work afterwards, right? So one piece I added, in terms of building my own slightly different operation is with my own touches on it is adding in basically 3 months of coaching afterwards, and then
Mhm.
I actually have a guarantee that basically if you're not, it's called my better dates guarantee, where if you're not going on better dates with women you're actually excited about within that 3 month period, I keep working with you virtually until you start having that success.
Mhm.
I'm not saying you're gonna be completely done growing. I'm not done growing,
No.
by any stretch, but, that you actually are seeing those results, or I'm gonna stay with you and keep providing support until you start seeing those results. As long as you're committed and you're not giving up on yourself, I'm not giving up on you. So yeah, we dive really deep in person. Some guys I do work just virtually too. It's always best though if you can come do some of that model work in person. Come, let
Mhm.
me see how you interact with people in person. And uh, yeah, dive really deep with the model work and do a lot of work socializing out on the street in the bars as well. And some guys don't even come to me for dating. Most guys do. But some guys are already in relationships or want to just work on their confidence in general. Um, and we're kind of addressing different elements of that, but it's all a lot of it is very similar work, because of what
Yeah.
we're talking about, where even if you're connecting with other men, it's different. It's maybe not as visceral, although it depends on the client. For some guys have such issues with masculinity that can actually be more intense. But
Mhm.
you know, um, your shit is still gonna come up around strangers, right? Who haven't validated you, especially if you're like being the leader and putting yourself out there.
Mhm.
And initiating conversations that aren't just happening naturally.
Yeah.
Stopping people on the street, that kind of thing. Um, and then we keep working when you get home too. So that's kind of an overview of how I work with guys. I don't know if that fully
Mhm.
answered the question, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So you're doing is that the core of your business right now? You're doing workshops that are, in-person workshops connected to the 3 month working with them. That's pretty much the package at this point.
Yeah, that's the flagship program. I do have
Yeah.
have guys in virtual programs as well. It's
Yeah.
always
Okay.
It's always gonna be, the most powerful for most guys to start with the in-person, but that's not possible for everyone, and so, I'll work with you virtually as well, and sometimes I even have virtual clients,
Mhm.
d like, I'll also look at their dating profiles and that kinda thing too, not just from some of it is from a surface level, like, "Okay, this looks terrible, right? We need to clean some of this stuff up, get you better
Mhm.
photos," that kinda thing, but it's also like, who are you being within that? Like, what's the energy in your photos? Because that's a big part of, like, taking better photos too, is, like, how are you feeling when that camera snaps? That's
Mhm.
that's huge. That's huge. And then what's driving your text with girls? Like,
Mhm.
not just what's going wrong here at the surface level, but what was going on inside you that made you respond this way or do this or do that? Um, so yeah, both virtual and in person, but
Mhm.
I really do love the in-person work.
Okay. Yeah, great. Great. I love that too. Yeah. So, if you could give people, maybe we're going to wrap up pretty soon here. If you could give people like one piece of advice, people who are stuck, Like, what would it be? Like, what would the one thing be?
I'd say, a powerful question, a powerful question, um, Ryan used to ask is like, what what am I doing to what am I doing or how am I participating in creating this in whatever reality?
Mm.
How am I creating
Mm.
this? Like, and just trying to look at it not from a like, how am I creating this, but like actually, getting curious about it. Like, huh, this is
Mm-hmm.
interesting. What's going on here? You know, that's off. Whether it's getting yourself out to go approach women, whether it's dates that aren't going your way, or conversations that aren't going your way, or really any aspect of it, with everything we've gone over in terms of the embodiment and stuff, and how connection works. But within that, like, what could be going on here that's off, and looking at that, and where am I avoiding tension is a big piece of it too.
Mm. That's great. That's fantastic. It's making me think. Yeah, where am I creating drama? Where am
Yeah,
I being a victim or a bully or rescuing someone?
yeah,
Yeah. The victim one's really common.
yeah.
Yeah.
For nice guys, especially, like guys who don't spark a lot of attraction with women, because that was so my background. Just like, more direct advice is like, yeah, when you see a girl you want to talk to, like, a couple things. One, like, if you're someone who really struggles with approach anxiety, can you stop and feel that for a moment? And can you shift your relationship to those emotions, to those fears? Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, yeah, I'm feeling all this anxiety, I'm feeling all this fear, this worry about what people think, or what she'll think, or how she'll react. Um, Let me feel those not just the thoughts, but the feeling in my body. Okay, can I shift this to like a feeling of being alive, a feeling of the rush of being alive, like
Mm.
like jumping out of an airplane to go skydiving? That can
Mm.
be scary, but it can also be it's fun because it's intense.
Mm-hmm.
Or a roller coaster is fun because it's intense. It's not fun in spite of the intensity. The intensity is what is the mechanism of fun. So can you start
Mm.
to have a relationship with fear and hesitation, anxiety, around, "Oh, yeah, I'm feeling something. This girl is making me feel something. Can I enjoy that, like, that aliveness, that those butterflies? Um,
Yeah.
and can I embrace, like, stepping into this anyway, even if I'm scared, even if I'm shaky, even if I'm a little awkward, as me leaning into a little bit more of my strongest self, of the strongest man I know I can be inside."
Yeah.
And um, and embracing that, and then, when you get in front of her, like, okay, so you got yourself in front of her. Now, okay, let all that stuff go. Can you just enjoy what you like about her? What's sexy about her? And speaking from that energy, ideally feeling your again, like I said earlier, feeling your cock as you talk. But just feeling some sense of attraction, and like that flirty energy, that masculine flirty energy, and just enjoying that. Be like, yeah, I'm here in this moment. I'm going to enjoy this moment with her for however long it lasts.
Yeah. Being present in the moment. Yeah. And anxiety, I learned this a long time ago. Anxiety and excitement are the same feeling in your body. So whenever you're feeling anxiety, it might as well just be excitement. It's just the way you're labeling it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So might as well be having fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, I still have approach anxiety. Not always, but a lot of the time, especially if it's someone I'm really attracted to, I still have approach anxiety come up. I
Yeah.
still do this work in the moment myself. Okay, yeah, there's that part of me that wants to run away from this. Alright, that's where's that gonna lead?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can I embrace this a little bit, and get into my turn on,
Mm-hmm.
feel my turn on, feel my masculinity, and just step right into it.
Yeah. I think that's always going to be there. I mean, it's still there for me as well in many different areas, but it's probably never going to go away, but do I want it to? Do I even want it to? I mean, you're alive. It helps push you
Yeah.
forward. It's excitement,
Yeah.
like I just said. It's like, that's just part of being human, You can't not be afraid of anything ever.
Yeah.
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 And old school, or somewhat old school. I think he's
Yeah.
come along a long ways too in his own evolution, but I think it was, I forget what his last name is, but Owen of Real Social Dynamics. I never really
Mm-hmm.
studied them, and again, there's still a lot in there that I don't necessarily agree with or that is the healthiest. But one thing I did love is he wrote this letter to approach anxiety, this ode to approach anxiety, because he actually did felt like he did get rid of all of it and he missed it because of that rush. He didn't get that rush walking up to women anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's one of those things that like goes back to like when we're kids and adults tell us, enjoy this, enjoy where you're at right now. And we're
Yeah.
like, I want to be an adult. And then you're like, you go out and like
Mm.
sometimes throughout life, I think many of us like see kids on a playground and get a little nostalgic for that era or like, see things on social media that's like harkens back to our childhood and misses it. So enjoy
Mm-hmm.
where you're at as best you can.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. All right, Mike. Thanks a lot for being on the show. I really appreciate it. It's been a great talk. We've talked about some great stuff, I think.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
James Ferrigno here. And it would be great if you guys could subscribe, like, follow whatever platform you're seeing this on, because that really helps me be able to continue the podcast. And so if you can do that, that would really help us out. Thanks a lot.